Okay, welcome to Labora again. This is the second episode on rainwater collecting and harvesting and storage. It was over a year ago that we made the first one, so this one's all about the updates that we've made, the increase in capacity, and actually some of the problems that we have faced, or rather I've faced and I've told Sally about. At Labora, what we're going to try and do is, our ultimate aim is trying to be self-sufficient in water terms, but only from rainwater. We didn't want to actually put a well in. We wanted to collect as much rain as we could to actually make us self-sufficient. So we collect the rainwater at the front of the building, which we're just about to walk to. But just to point out, because we'll come back to this later, this is a self-contained building that we call the lavanderia, and that's got its own separate system on the back, which we'll be explaining further on in the video. If you follow me down, we're going to go round to the front now. The main house itself, we're on the north side of the wall here, and up on the top of the roof here, this is where our main water is collected from, and it's 60 square metres of roof area, or just over 60 square metres. The water from the roof comes off the roof and is collected on the west side of the building, which we're just about to go to now, where we've got all our tanks and underground cisternas. So we're now on the northern side of the house, and this is where the rain from the main roof comes down, and it comes down the white pipe here, and I've put a filter here that stops basically the debris from the roof, the coarse debris from the roof. We cut that out. It's also got a mosquito net on it to stop the mosquitoes from going in, because we have a lot of mosquitoes here. Once it comes down that pipe, it comes down the orange pipe here, which is a homemade first flush system. When that fills up, it backflows and then drops itself down, and it'll empty itself down into a stone cisterna, which is underground. It's about 2 meters down there, and it empties the... Oh, there's another gecko. Oh, there he is. Another YouTuber. So it empties the water all the way down into the stone cisterna first, and this was the original part of the house which we had when we got here. So the water goes into here after being debris filtered, first flush, and from the underground cisterna, what we do is, I'm going to do the big reveal now. I made these out of a bit of reflective, sun reflective material? Blackout blind. Yeah, blackout blind material, because basically if you don't do that, algae grows in them if you're not using it. So basically it's just to keep the filters dark. And I've got no geckos in here, which is good. Yet. Ta-da! So what we generally tend to do is, because I'm surrounded by lizards and geckos, what we generally tend to do is, when the water's been collected in the stone cisterna, we then pump it out of the stone cisterna into the panettone tanks. So we pump it out and we take it through the 3 filters, 80 micron, 10 micron activated carbon, which basically takes the smell out, and then we put it through this huge UV light filter, sterilizing it, and we take it up and put it into the above ground panettones. Last time we only had 1, this time we've got 2. We've put 2 panettones together, and we've got an expansion valve that connects the 2 tanks. So it's filtered once, put into the top 2 tanks, and when we want to use it for the house, we then feed off the panettone tanks, and the feed then goes back again through the 3 filters, through the UV filter, and off to the house. So basically, by the time it goes to the house, it's been double filtered. The last thing that we've put in is, if the panettones were full and we were collecting rainwater in a cisterna and that got full, we put an overflow pipe. So if everything's full and this one fills up, then eventually it will just overflow and come out onto the land. And I've done a homemade mosquito net inside this pipe to stop the mozzies from getting in as well, because got to try and stop them getting into that water, because they'd love it, they'd breed all over it. So once we feed off the panettones, we're going to actually take it into the house. 2 valves here, the junction that goes into the house. The actual small one goes into the house, and this big one is the one that goes from this junction that goes all the way to the lavanderia, and we'll take you around to the lavanderia. So this allows me to pump from what we call the front group, the panettones and cisterna, all the way to either supply the lavanderia or to top up the lavandera tanks. So it's just a bit of manual switching with valves, and then we can move all the water around, which is fantastic. So now we come around just the side of the house, and the pipe that runs from the house over here is buried underground and runs all the way down to the lavandera, which you can see in the distance. So as you come down itself, behind this wall here is the kitchen, and in the kitchen there was an old stone cisterna which is actually still underneath the floor, and I've actually put in an inlet and an outlet pipe, so if during the winter our panettone and our cisterna are completely full, I'll just run a pipe around the corner here because I've got a Honda water pump, and I'll pump another 2,000 litres into the stone cisterna under the kitchen, and we've had that cleaned and it's spotless and dry as well. So if that overflows during the winter time, we'll dump another 2,000 litres down there. So the pipe itself continues to run all the way down until we hit the lavandera. On the side of the lavandera, just to the left, I don't know if you can see, there's a metallic door, and the pipes run down to the metallic door, and underneath there, oh, there's Mr. Gecko who lives in there. He lives in here. When I open it up, he bolts into the hole. Okay, Mr. Gecko. There he is. Oh, yeah, I'm not. He's behind that one. Yeah, I'm not there. He's a YouTuber. Oh, no, he says, oh, no, I don't want to YouTube. So the valves come down from the front of the house all the way down here, next to the lavandera, into a junction here, and we can power the lavandera with the front tank. If I turn this valve up and this valve off, oh, he's off again. So we can power this from the front tanks, but this is generally powered from its own tanks. It's supplied from its own tanks, which are just behind the garage. So at the moment, this is powered from its separate tank group to the lavandera. Best use of this means that when we collect at the front of the house in the cisterna, I can configure this so we pump from the front group to the rear group, the lavandera group, to top the tanks up. So we collect out the front, I can then pump it, and it goes all the way through the filters, and then we can put it into the rear tanks and fill the rear tanks up. So now we're on the side of the lavandera, and if you walk down the the northern side here past the garage, behind the garage we've got 2 water tanks. On the last episode we only had one of the tanks, which we called the polo tank, for an obvious reason because it's got a big hole in the middle. Anyone from the UK will know that. But we've also put in another tank with an expansion valve joining the 2 tanks together. So rather than 2,000 litres now, we've got 3,500 litres behind the lavandera. As I said just a minute ago, we fill these up from the front group, and it's got a bullcock on the top of that tank there, so it automatically closes itself off to fill it up. And I've just filled these up, so it's got 3,500 litres in. We then run this water to the lavandera. This system also has its own 2 filters built into it. It's got a 80 micron and 10 micron filter, and inside the polo tank is a submersed pump, so it's got its own pump as well. So now we're talking about the 2 other roof areas that we've got. We've got the lavandera here, which is just short of 20 square metres, and we've got the garage roof, which is about 15 square metres. The water that we collect from these 2 roofs is stored down the back, just at the other side of the citrus grove, and we use that water for irrigation of plants outside the inner garden. The inside garden here, have you seen any of our episodes, is a completely dry garden. None of the gardens, we don't water inside, they're all dry Mediterranean plants. So the water we collect for irrigation will be used for micro irrigation on the allotment, which is at the rear of the property, and the fruit trees which are out on the land. And we've also got a farming area which is way out on the southeastern side of the land when we need to do that. So strictly irrigation. And we're going to go around and we're going to have a look at how we collect that. Okay, so I got distracted. So the lavandera is just in front of me here, and you can see the orange pipe that runs down from the lavandera into the top of the IBC container. It's about a 9-metre run. Off the top of the garage, I've picked off the downpipe, which also runs into this first IBC container here. So all the water from these 2 roofs are collected into the first IBC, and the IBCs are all connected in series. I think on the last episode I only had 2 installed. I've got 3 installed at the moment, and the 4th one is waiting to be installed. So when we came back after the last period away, all of these were completely full. Yeah, we bought them all second hand, and we've mounted them all ourselves around the back here. So they were completely full when we returned, and I've worked out that we're going to need 6,000 litres of storage capacity over the winter time, which is going to require another 2 IBCs at the back, and I'm going to show you what that is at the moment. In the future, I'm going to plan to put an extra pump down here. I'm going to pick off the IBCs and I'm going to pump it to a micro irrigation system into the allotment. Okay, we're now behind the the garage where the 2 water tanks are, and we've got the 4 IBC containers which are just set up in the inner garden. The plan is when we come back in the autumn time, is to put another 2 IBCs here and here, so I can feed from these 4 IBCs to the 2 IBCs, giving me 6,000 litres of irrigation water. And then just down here we've got what's going to be our allotment area. So I'm going to put micro irrigation for Sally once we've actually finished off the allotment area for the plants here, strictly on micro irrigation. We'll probably have some strawberries coming over here, some raspberries, and the rest of the water we'll be looking after the fruit trees. In the summertime, I reckon we need to have at least 3,000 litres of water to do the fruit trees, and another 1,000 to 2,000 litres of water to do the allotment area. So 6,000 litres is a really good figure. On the last episode, I actually finished the episode saying we're going to put a jar tank here, and there was a big sort of gap here and we didn't have a patio. Now we've got a jar tank, it's cut in, and it collects 500 litres of water from the 15 square metres from the terrace roof. It's incredibly efficient and it tops up really quickly, even in the lightest rain. On the front of the tank itself, I've put a cam lock adapter, because the Honda pump that I've got with the hoses, with the cam locks, makes it really quick to just connect in, clip, and pump from this tank to the IBCs, because we're going to use this for irrigation water to top up the IBC tanks. I found that when it was coming off the roof, there was quite a lot of algae in it. Ideally, when I talked about in the last episode, I wanted to pump this to the front tanks, but actually the first time I did it there was lots of algae, so unless it clears up, then I'll probably pump it for irrigation. If longer term, because lots are passing through it and it's clear, then I'll probably pump this to the front group with the IBCs, because it needs it more than the irrigation water. Okay, we just walked around, we're now on the south side of the building. This is the stone pizza oven that we've got, and on top of the pizza oven they've actually got a sloped roof which is designed to collect water. And you can probably see here that at some point they used to collect water off it. My plan now is to put guttering along the side here to collect water from this roof. I'm going to make a lean-to, but have it so the water drops down into the same guttering here, and I'm going to collect the water from these 2 roofs and take it round to the front of the house where the large Panettone and the Cisterna are. By doing this, I'm going to increase the surface area of my main collecting by 20%. So this will add 20% more surface area to the roof to collect water, which is really good. Apparently my last one about the hippo tank with the big bottom didn't make any sense, so Sally told me I've got to go and do it again. Right, I've put a tap pick off from the filtered side of the cisterna just around the corner, so I can attach pumped water that's gone through the filter, and I can pump it into the hippo tank. So there's clean filtered sterilised water in here. So I can add that to my storage capacity for use in the house. Obviously when I need it, I'm going to have to manually pump it out from the hippo tank back into the cisterna and use it. The last 2 bits on my very long list of jobs here at La Bolla, concerning water that is I found out that when the cisterna pump runs, because it comes up a big pipe from down about 2 meters down, if that runs dry, then what it does is it cavitates the pump closes down, and then to feed water in from the other tank group, I actually have to take the bolt off the back of the pump to bleed the air off out of the system and then put the bolt back in. It's no big deal for me, but for other people, if they're here or Sally's by herself, that would be quite a big issue. So my plan is I'm going to put a float switch on off for the pump in the cisterna and make it turn the pump off before it gets to a cavitation point in the pump. So then you can just change to the other tanks. The last thing that we're going to do, and again we'll do this in the autumn time, is that we're going to buy a Berkey water filter for inside the house with our double filtered water coming off the roofs through all the filtering system that we've got. We're then going to put it through a Berkey water filter system, and then we're going to have that water tested, and if it's safe to drink, we will be drinking our own water that we collected. When you actually put new systems in, you always find slight problems. And we found a slight problem with the pool. There's a valve in here that's powered off the lavanderier group, which comes down here for an auto top-up facility for the pool. Last year, that valve wasn't closing off, and it just kept on running the lavanderier pump out. And I didn't spot it until November last year, and we fixed it now. And I've put a pressure reducing valve in the line so it doesn't overpower this valve as well. Okay, when we started the project, we actually had 6,000 out the front, 1,500 under the kitchen, so 7,500. We've now ended up with 20,500 litres for the house, and we will have 6,000 litres for irrigation. So we're going from 7,500 to 26,500, which should actually make us self-sufficient if we can capture it through the winter. I hope you found this episode interesting and informative. If you've got a comment, please send us a comment and I'll reply to it as soon as I can, hopefully within a day or so. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to get notification of future episodes that come out. I'm going to tell you about this really quickly. I call this Sally's UFO. This has irrigated water from the irrigation tanks in it, and Sally calls it her UFO. Well, I actually call it a UFO. And when I brought it out here, I got stopped by French customs 3 times, and the only thing they were interested, and they kept on asking me, is what this was. And I kept on telling them it's a water fountain.